So hello and good afternoon. I'm Alison Coutinho, and I want to talk to you about the most important elements of keeping design on the table. So when everything else feels like it's being stripped back, how can we keep the agenda for high quality spaces and good design? During my life as a practicing architect, I frequently witnessed designs being watered down or stripped back by my clients. Principally, it was because budgets weren't necessarily shared in the first place, but also because clients weren't necessarily embedded and committed to the design development during all of the design stages. One critical project that I worked on was a multi-million-pound luxury residence spa, which had all but 4 rooms were clad in marble or veneer, all at the client's behest. And so while the client's aspirations were of extravagance and opulence, there was a clear lack of budgetary control. And that taught me huge lessons in protecting and de-risking design. So after practicing architecture for just over 10 years, I became increasingly interested in the relationship between budget holders and designers, and how they communicate and how they work together to meet common goals. I moved developer side, some of you might call the dark side, and used the opportunity to practice and implement all the lessons I'd learned in practice to work with design teams to safeguard design intent ultimately, but also manage budgets and monitor spending and ultimately spend money where it counts. I should be using my time at Brick by Brick, a council-owned housing development company, as an example of how I try to keep design on the table. I'm head of delivery at Brick by Brick, and with a team of development managers, many of whom are architects, landscape architects, and surveyors. I'm responsible for delivering urgently needed homes of the highest quality to budget and to programme. So whilst my targets relate to profit like any commercial business, it's also absolutely imperative to have well-designed homes. And why is it imperative to have well-designed homes? I know I'm talking to a bunch of architects or people interested in high-quality design, but ultimately because we're dealing with a housing crisis. These statistics are relatively pre-COVID, and COVID has certainly exacerbated the issues we're facing. But essentially, we have got 1.4 million people living in poor quality homes. The statistic that really resonates with me is that 2.5 million of those people are in hidden households. So they can't afford to move out of house shares or living with their parents or living with an ex-partner. So we're building homes within existing communities, and we're building homes in some areas to form new communities for those people who urgently need them. Our housing delivery programme is vast, and we currently have approximately 25 developments under planning determination. We've got 29 developments under construction or in contract, and approximately 20 sites that are undergoing very early feasibility studies. And with this in mind, I would like to share with you all 5 key ways that we are sort of developing to ensure that the design isn't left behind and to ensure that it is absolutely critical in maximising cost to value. So, number 1, apologies, I'm just going to stretch my slides. Sorry, I think my slides are a bit cut off, so just a second. There we go. So number 1, having a clear brief and budget to enable our architects to develop a robust design from the outset. So over the 4 years we've been operating, we have developed a project manual, which is a brief and a design guide. It sets out spatial, technical, environmental, and commercial ambitions and objectives. It sets out our approvals processes and our deliverables for each stage. With our project manual, we aim to minimize the assumptions that can be made by others and by ourselves. We seek to minimize changing our objectives and therefore minimize the number of design iterations, which, if left unestablished, can be costly. A Accompanying the project manual is a development-specific viability appraisal. The viability appraisal establishes the development budget, which is shared with our design teams. We have a viability appraisal that we have developed for our own purposes. It's bespoke to us. It's pretty lengthy and detailed, but it takes into account all the varying factors that can ultimately affect the profitability of a development. And fundamentally, if a development doesn't make a profit or doesn't meet our targets, it won't be delivered, which is a harsh reality we have to face. And therefore, we see our budgets as something our design teams equally own with us. The budgets are based on market-tested cost data, as well as benchmark values from our completed developments. It is therefore a shared experience and a shared pain when working on tricky sites with low development potential, but that is part of the challenge of working in areas where land is a precious commodity and a safe home for people to live in is an increasingly desperate need. By having a clear brief and budget, our focus turns to working with our architects to develop a design that is robust from the outset. This sounds really simple, but it is about remembering the end game from the beginning. The end game is to have a well-designed home that our architects are proud of, that our architects are proud of designing, that we are proud of delivering within budget and to program, and that our residents are proud to live in. Working up details that consider the sequencing of construction, for example, or site logistics, therefore, can save thousands of pounds, and that really is can be really critical to the viability of a project. That something as simple as getting a detail that doesn't quite factor in a particular site constraint can mean that the entire project seemingly is unviable and could be scrapped. So therefore, paying close attention to that right from the outset is really important. And also ensuring that design intent is integral to the overall building, so that there aren't superfluous details that can be chopped and changed or omitted willy-nilly without changing the overall design intent. Here's an example of recently completed development of ours by Mikhail Riches in South Croydon, and by our in-house architecture team, Common Ground Architecture, recently completed development Pump House in South Norwood. So number 2, embracing standardization to benefit from economies of scale. So standardization benefits from buying gains. That is the ability to agree supply rates and develop call-off contracts, for example, all of which provide a level of cost security over multiple developments. There are also environmental gains in minimizing wastage and establishing a production line that would otherwise be less efficient if delivering in small quantities. We have an interior specification for our private and shared ownership homes and a specification for our affordable rent homes, which meets the requirements of the registered providers who have maintenance contracts with certain companies. Both of these specifications are designed by our in-house architecture team, Common Ground Architecture, of which I'll say more on later. An example of spending money in the right place is in our kitchen design for private and shared ownership homes, which this photo shows one such example. So the carcasses are from a standard kitchen supplier. However, the handles are architect-designed molded timber handles. They're warm to touch and ergonomic to use. Brick by Brick and the handle supplier benefit from the economy of scale of having them specified across our programme. And the handle supplier, in turn, has some security and revenue in supplying these to Brick by Brick. The other benefit of standardization is the perfecting of details through repeat construction of them. So standardizing design details can also help resolve common issues as basic as cistern access or rodding eye access, which in a design and build contract could go very wrong if we left it to the main contractor to resolve the access to these services. Number 3, feedback and approvals at every milestone. So at Brick by Brick, this mechanism is called a gateway. And there's an absolute requirement for collaborative reviews by all our departments, i.e. commercial, finance, sales, marketing, property management, and resident liaison teams, to ensure a 360-degree assessment of the development at all stages. And this is to balance the demands of programme, budget, sales, marketing, as well as design, ensure that key decisions have had a holistic input and buy-in. We have learned how critical it really is that these reviews take place at every key milestone. And for us, the key milestones are mid-design stage and at the end of each design stage, through construction and into post-occupancy. And that's to avoid surprises later on. For example, a key decision about changing floor finishes may seem like a cost and design question, yet for our sales team, a floor finish is absolutely critical to the customer journey. So when a potential resident opens the door to our sales suite, the first thing they look at is the floor. So to us, the floor finish becomes so much more, and it is about the experience, the ambition, warmth, touch, and delight for our residents. Number 4, design monitoring and compliance. So Common Ground Architecture, our in-house architecture team, peer review developments at all stages and ensure the design intent set out in our employer requirements is delivered on site. So Common Ground Architecture is really the golden thread for us. They run through all our developments. They provide quality assurance to ensure we maintain our reputation for delivering homes of the highest standard. And good design, as we all know, can save time and money and generate value. They also develop strong working relationships with the supply chains, as I alluded to earlier in talking about our kitchen handles. And they are also key in capitalization of the standardization of some of our specification. As they work across all our developments, that also means they can spot savings being realized from one development, for example, and apply it to the rest of the program. Additionally, using examples of lessons learned, one bad experience on one development can be very quickly implemented onto other developments, but that may well suffer from the same decision made. And number 5, benchmarking and learning lessons. So this is about feeding live data, such as tender returns, contract sums, into our assumptions as soon as we have the data available. So for example, if we go out to tender on one of our developments, we typically go out to a minimum of 3 contractors. So all those contractors pricing our designs all become really relevant and useful information in us being able to get current rates on our schemes and be able to feed that into our early designs. We also use data for as-built drawings to reflect and understand on how our design intents have been resolved, or in some cases not resolved and delivered on site. So this is a really important lesson for us because it enables us to remain ambitious, to challenge the norm, to be able to stretch and challenge contractors in terms of what they're delivering, but also to be able to understand where sometimes we may be pushing it too far. These are some of the architecture practices we collaborate with. And apologies, I think this might be tiny on our site, on your screens, but the top right 2 architects are Rough Architects and Sarah Wigglesworth Architects. We also work with Threefold, Stitch Architects, Michael Riches, Hayhurst & Co, Mica, Denizen Works, Arkeo, Pittman Tozer, HDA Coffee, Mary Duggan, May and VPPR, amongst some others. Some of these names you may well recognize. They range in size and they range in terms of the types of developments they work on, and they bring so much experience to the table. We hold regular Pecha Kucha presentations. They're normally in our office, but now increasingly everything's virtual, and workshops over the years. And we prioritize our ability to work with these architects and with engineers and with landscape architects to update and refine our briefing and our processes. Additionally, there's a lot to learn from our residents through post-occupancy consultation. This enables us to refine what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how much it's going to cost us. We've been operating for just over 4 years, and we're very much on a journey. We aren't afraid of indulging in a design and cost discussion. And keeping design on the table has enabled us to deliver a number of completed developments at a relatively high speed. By enhancing and developing the 5 approaches I've just shared with you, we're trying to enable innovation within a framework that ensures quality and value at all stages. Here are a couple more images of our recently completed developments. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is create homes for happy residents and a happy pigeon. Thank you.